Welcome to OState Daily. Casey Porter here. So glad you decided to tune in. And hey, fans, we have a very special guest today. Obviously, very special to Oklahoma State fans. Way more special to me because this young man that we're talking to today, Kevin Godfrey, who came to Oklahoma State in 1981, he was one of my childhood idols, no doubt about it. Got to see him all the way back to Pohai in the late 70s. Probably went and got him, 17 or 18 different drinks at the concession stand there at Ponca City. Him and Kevin Harlan. Enjoyed watching him wave the towel. That was a big sensation there in the early 80s and his entire career at Oklahoma State. He actually came to my 10th birthday and gave me a football with a stamp emblem Oklahoma State University on it. I remember those days like it was yesterday. Kevin Godfrey, how the hell are you, man?
I'm doing fine, Casey. Thanks for having me on. Excited to be here. And, go Pokes.
Absolutely. Okay, so first of all, got to back up all the way to your Ponca City High School days. You, Kevin Harlan, you guys had some great teams. I know later on in Ponca City, Meek Shaw went to UCLA, eventually OU, and Chris Smith was a quarterback that went to Oklahoma State. But, hey, Ponca City had it rolling back then, didn't they?
Well, I think we did. I think we had a coach, Kenny Ray, came in Ponca City in, I think, 77, I believe.
Yeah.
And he really turned the tables around for us, and we got some better athletes out and had all kinds of kids wanting to come out and contribute to Pohai football. It was a good time to be around Ponca City football.
Okay. Hey, first of all, I should have backed up and started with this, but tell us what you're doing now, where you're living and all that kind of stuff.
I'm living in Tulsa right now. I had an unfortunate injury about 3 years ago. I fell and broke my hip.
Oh.
So right now I am disabled, but hopefully that'll be changing in the near future.
Okay. Kind of tell us about what you did after. We'll get into your Oklahoma State career and all that here in a minute, but kind of tell us, bridge that gap between the time we saw you waving your flag and kicking balls to the moon on Lewis Field back then to how we got to now.
Casey, I spent most of my career in the hospitality industry.
Nice.
Hotels, casinos, country clubs, bars, restaurants, that whole thing right there. Being nice to people, having people be nice to me. I'm very, very, very fortunate to have done what I did.
Sounds like Kevin Harlan, I think we were talking earlier, you said he was the leader of the entire nationwide FCA. Is that correct?
That is what I understand. Now, I haven't talked with Kevin in years and years. I think since his wedding, in the early 80s. But from what I understand, that is what has gone on. I think he might be up in the Kansas City area. And other than that, I don't know. I know both of his folks passed on. So I really don't know a whole lot about how long I can go with that.
Yeah. Of course, Kevin Harlan was a wonderful tight end there at Oklahoma State, the same times a year early.
He could play some baseball, too.
He absolutely could. I can remember watching him play baseball.
Oh, man, he hits some moonshots now.
Yeah. I think I remember him, of course, back then in Ponca City, dead center field was like 918 feet. And then they had like a backstop that went over center field. I'm sure you remember that.
Yeah,
and
it was about 480 to get it out. Yeah, I never saw one leave there.
Yeah, me neither, but it seems like I remember him almost doing it. I was like, dang, man, I was 10 years old, and I was like, oh, my God, that's the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen. So, yeah, Kevin Harlan, Kevin Godfrey, great memories of my childhood. So, okay, we've talked about what you're doing now. We've talked about your days at Pohai. Got to ask you, first of all, where did the towel waving thing come in? I mean, it's like, here comes this kicker. Oklahoma State just scored a touchdown, and Kevin Godfrey's coming out and getting these 52,000 people all excited at Lewis Field. How did that all come about?
I'll tell you what happened, Casey, was we scored a touchdown, and Coach Jones called the kickoff coverage team down to one end of the bench, to fire us up before the kickoff coverage. And he told, I don't know if you remember James Evans, we called him Shake, Jim Evans from RIP. And he said, Shake, when you go out there, get these people fired up. Do whatever you got to do to these people fired up. So I kind of took it upon myself, said, well, James can do it. I'll do it too. And so I started waving my little towel around and did it for 2 or 3 home games in a row. And all of a sudden they had towels coming out before the game that said, crank 'em up Kevin on there. And I said, I think I found a niche.
Oh man, that is.
If NIL was around then as it is today,
You would have been like the biggest NIL winner as the kicker because you waved all the towels and got everybody excited. I remember that so well, man. As a young kid, I mean, it was like, oh man, let's go. I mean, it got me fired up. You can tell my voice right now still gets me fired up. So that is fantastic.
Well, that's very kind of you. We had a good time doing it. We had a great kickoff coverage team for the 4 years I did it. Great coverage team, and I'll never forget it.
Seems like you kicked barefooted, didn't you?
I did kick barefooted.
How in the hell do you do that? I mean, you got to be a
I don't know.
crazy
I got a lot of
sucker to
people
do
ask
that.
me that even today. Hell, I had somebody ask me Sunday, just this past Sunday, how the hell did you do that? The ball left my foot cleaner, quicker. I just enjoyed it, and that's the only answer I can give you.
So I got to ask you, whenever you go back to Oklahoma State, which you're still very, very heavily involved, you're a fan. You weren't just a player. You're a fan of OSU to this day.
I'm a big fan of every sport, Casey.
Yeah.
I love my Cowboys. Those around me know I love my Cowboys, whether it be obviously football, basketball, baseball, girls basketball, wrestling, baseball, softball. I just love it all. I love my Cowboys. And I've never been so proud as to attend an institution like I did Oklahoma State. It's just a great, great feeling all the way around.
That is a great feeling. So when you go back, or do you get more questions? How did you kick barefooted, or how did the towel come about? The two questions I just asked you, which one comes up first?
Probably the barefooted question.
Okay.
To be honest with you, people just really don't get that.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So, hey, I'm going to look to my left, and I'm going to ask you about Jimmy Johnson and Pat Jones here in a minute. But I'm going to look to my left because I have to cheat because I'm not very smart. And I'm going to leave some names out here, so go ahead and fill in some names if I do.
Okay,
but here
sure.
are some of the players you played with. And I know you're really close with most of them still. Ike Jackson, Barry Hanna. We remember the Barry Hanna around the Gator Bowl. You weren't part of that Gator Bowl team. But Matt Monger, Ernest Anderson, Mark Moore, Rusty Hilger, Larry Roach, of which I know you're very close with him still, Sean Jones, Malcolm Lewis, Bobby Riley, Rodney Harding, Brent Guy, Chris Rockins, Mark Moore, Rod Fisher. Wow. Those are some names, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All of them great, great, great football players and great teammates as well.
Talk about those teams that had all that talent led by Coach Jimmy Johnson, and then Pat Jones obviously is one of the assistants.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think when I think back about those teams, I think about the defense. You know, Jimmy came from Pitt. He had the defensive background, and the defenses we threw out in 83 and 84 and 85, I guess, and that was after I'd left. But 83, I was still there. And those defenses were just great, great individuals. You're talking about John Washington, you're talking about Rodney Harding, you're talking about Leslie O'Neal, you're talking about Matt Munger, you're talking about Mark Moore, Chris Rockins, Carl Lowe, all these folks we can remember, or at least I can remember. They just made us a great defense. Offensively, I think Jimmy's a little, how do I want to say this? Maybe a little shallow on his play calling.
Yeah.
Because I think we had some players who could make some plays. You talk about Bobby Riley and you talk about Malcolm Lewis. So Terry Weimer in there, Mark Cromer, Terry Young. We had some players who could make some plays, but Jimmy just wanted to, I think maybe he didn't think we were, he just wanted to be conservative. I'll just leave it at that.
Protecting his defense, man.
I guess. And he didn't, if we went 3 and out, it didn't bother him.
Okay, man. Well, I got to ask you then. I mean, of course, Jimmy Johnson, the era, he went to Miami. We'll get to that here in a second. But, hey, we hear about Jimmy Johnson being this hard ass and making all of his players toe the line and being that kind of guy with a lot of discipline. What was it like for Kevin Godfrey to play for Jimmy Johnson?
Well, I had no problem with Jimmy Johnson. I came to from Ponca City as a walk-on. He didn't have to give me a sniff of air if he didn't want to. And he did, and he let me play. He let me travel. We used to call it getting on that big bird every Friday when we go out of town. And once again, rest in peace, my deep snapper, Jerry Kosho from Pauls Valley. He used to say, hey, KG, we're getting on another plane on Friday. Here we go. And that was the way I felt about Jimmy. No problems at all. No problem at all. Just wish you would have opened up a little bit offensively.
Yeah. How about Pat Jones? What was he like?
Pat was a character, to say the least, and I'm sure that you know him through your media adventures. He still is a character. I think of Pat when I think about the stutter. He had a little bit of a stutter when I was at Oklahoma State, and he used to go, gut, 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 and you can imagine where the rest of it went with the Godfrey following it.
Absolutely. Yeah, stutter, 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 Godfrey. That I would imagine that you shipped up.
Oh, there was another adjective thrown in there.
I'm sure there was. Hey, and another memory that just kind of comes to my head, the 1983 Bluebonnet Bowl. That's really the first memory I have of Oklahoma State in a big-time bowl environment. You defeated Baylor that year. It was in Houston. Can you kind of take us through that experience as far as the way that you saw it?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. I did a little media deal after the game, and I said the first half of tonight's game, I think we could have beat anybody in the country.
Yeah.
If you remember, Rusty got knocked out that game. He got on a touchdown pass to Jamie Harris, got knocked out. And I just think that first half, we were up 24-7, I believe, at halftime. I think we could play anybody in the country, and we almost did that year. If you go back and look at the scores, we got beat 4 games. We got beat by Nebraska by 4, Oklahoma by, I think, 2 or 1. The onside kick game, the Rockins onside kick game.
Yeah.
I don't like to think about that either. And we got beat by Missouri in Columbia, I think, by 3. And then for some reason, K-State beat us in Stillwater at homecoming by not very much. But we were like 15 points away from being undefeated that year.
Yeah. No doubt. So I have to ask you, I know you don't want to talk about it, but I got to ask you because you're on the team. What happened on that onside kick deal where it went off for Chris Rockins? There's been a million different stories. Can you clear that up for us?
All Chris had to do was get out of the way. And I love Chris Rockins. Had my whole life. Great guy. Love the hell out of him. But Chris, just get out of the way. Let the ball out of bounds. Nobody's going to touch that ball. And nobody from Oklahoma knew it was an onside kick.
Isn't that amazing? That just kind of seemed like how that series went back then, didn't it?
You know, with about 5 minutes to go in the game, I was trying to decide which goalpost am I going to help tear down, or should I tear down both of them?
And you would have been right in the middle of it because you were a guy that liked to be right in the middle of the action, right?
I like to be right in the middle of it. Yeah, I would have been in the middle of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I got to ask you too. 84, the year after you left, and then all those great mid '80s teams with Leslie O'Neal. You mentioned John Washington, Matt Monger, all those guys. Great defenses. Thurman Thomas came in. They were such good teams. And then the Mike Gundy-led areas with there was kind of the bridge between Thurman and Barry. And then after that, and all the way, really, I don't think people realize in 1989, the year after Barry Sanders, Oklahoma State had a running back that led the nation in rushing again in Gerald Hudson. So I've got to feel like your groups really felt like you catapulted Oklahoma State into that kind of success.
Oh, it was just so fun as an alumnus or as an ex-player watching Thurman and Barry do their stuff and then Gerald Hudson do his stuff. How fun was that? I mean, it was great. Wish we could have got past Nebraska and Oklahoma. Never really did it on a steady basis. Well, on any basis. But it was great to watch those guys play. And Hartley and Coach Mike doing what he did and all that stuff. It was a great feeling.
I'll bet it was. And so seeing the program, of course, you got there in 81. Oklahoma State had beaten OU and I believe won a share of the Big 8 title back then in 1976. So there was some recent success within the last 5 years when you got there, but really your group and those early Jimmy groups is what got the tide turned for Oklahoma State there in the 80s. So you saw a big period of success at OSU, which was a big part of my childhood, which is why when people talk about Oklahoma State historically not being very good, that doesn't ring with me because that wasn't the childhood that I had, right? Oklahoma State was really good in the 80s. So let's fast forward to the program under Mike Gundy when he got to Oklahoma State. Compare it to then and now and talk about all the things that he has done for OSU.
So I really can't compare it because I've never been in a meeting with Mike and I've never sat in on his team meetings. But I'll tell you what, I am so damn proud to be a Mike Gundy supporter. He has done wonderful things for Oklahoma State. And I don't know how you compare him to Jimmy. Don't know how to compare him to Pat. But I love Mike Gundy. I hope he stays forever. I know that's impossible, but I really, really am proud that Mike Gundy is the head coach of my school.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. And I think Bob Simmons injected some excitement into the program. Got into the bowl game, the Alamo Bowl, 1997. Which was nice, but then Oklahoma State struggled again. I know that next game back, they lost to Tulsa on the road in 1998, so there wasn't any consistent winning with Bob Simmons. Then Les Miles comes in, doesn't give a crap about OU, beats them 2 years in a row, takes Oklahoma State to the Cotton Bowl, and then turns it over to Mike Gundy. So I say that to say, what were the probation years like in the 90s for somebody like Kevin Godfrey, who had spent their entire college career trying to build Oklahoma State into something special?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Casey. At that time, I really didn't care much.
Okay.
I think that everybody, when they leave their institution, goes through a period of, oh, I'm not that guy anymore. I'm not that man anymore. Nobody's sharing me down anymore. And during the time of the probation years, I just really didn't. I didn't pay that much attention to the program until Coach Gundy got back to Oklahoma State and brought all the alumni back, which God bless him for doing that. I didn't really have a whole lot to say about it. Yeah. Now I'll answer any question you want to about Oklahoma State football.
Awesome. So would you say, of all the winning Coach Gundy's done, of all the greatness he's done for OSU, would you say maybe one of the biggest things he's done for OSU is to reconnect with the alumni?
Oh,
some of the great
absolutely.
players?
Absolutely, 100%, 110%. He has made so many people feel much more welcome to come back to where they played, more than Pat, more than Anderson or Simmons. And, Les Miles went in there long enough to, who knows? Yeah. But since Mike's been there, no problem at all.
So what does that mean to a former player? How much does that mean to you? Explain that.
Oh, everything. It means absolutely everything. To have to be remembered, to have people shake your hand, people give you a high five. It means everything. Absolutely.
No doubt about that. Okay, so you still are very connected. You watch all the games, and what's really cool about getting to talk with you is that you actually have become a fan instead of, yes, you're a former player, but you allow yourself to be a fan. You ride the emotions of the frustrations of the bad and the excitement of the good and all that. Coach speak, hey, you got to stay even keel, all this. You got to become a fan. You got to enjoy the ride. That's what I really love about talking to you about Oklahoma State football. So having said all that, you would be the perfect person to talk about this year's team.
I'll tell you what, I think we have got an opportunity to do something special this year, Casey. 3 weeks in, I think there's some things we need to do better. Obviously, we want to run the ball better, but if teams are going to continually put 8 or 9 men in the box and we can throw over them, I just say keep doing it. Am I wrong there? Am I missing?
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. And eventually, if we throw for 400 yards a game, they're going to have to drop somebody out of the box, and that'll get Ollie Gordon going. And I just think we have an opportunity to do something special. Disappointed to hear on the Brooks kid yesterday getting in the portal.
Yeah.
But I think we have an opportunity to do some great things this year. Saturday will be huge against Utah. Next Saturday will be huge against Kansas State. And once we get to those 2 games, I think we'll be able to see exactly where we stand and where we need to go, either up or down.
And you came to Oklahoma State in a period where OSU went from 1976 until 1996 and did not beat OU. I didn't see it with my own eyes. I was, 3 years old in 1976. So I didn't see it with my own eyes until I was like in my 20s. And so that first time when Oklahoma State went on the road and won, that 12-0 game, I think that was the first time OSU won. I believe that was 1996. I get my years mixed up. But anyways, I say all that to say Oklahoma State's no longer in a conference with OU. How do you feel about that?
You know what? And people, I kind of run my mouth jokingly about Oklahoma. and so be it. They've had a great tradition. They've had a great history there at OU. I've got no problem with that, but I like to give them a little bit of shit. And so, this year, I'm not really concerned with them. It doesn't bother me. Whatever OU does. Whatever Texas does. It doesn't bother me. There's other fish to fry right now. That being, it looks like Utah and Kansas State.
No doubt. So what do you think about the Big 12? You like it?
As it stands right now?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think so. I think there are a couple of additions we can have. I was a little disappointed they just didn't go ahead and bite Washington State and Oregon State to jump on in.
Yeah.
No, I like the Big 12 as it is now. I mean, there's some talent there.
No doubt about that. So, hey, this has been a massive amount of fun for me. Again, I was 10 years old that period of my life when you came through Oklahoma State. My parents were one of those sponsored families, so you actually came over to our house and had dinner on a couple of occasions. You came to my 10th birthday and gave me an Oklahoma State football. I spent I don't know how many hours in your dugout at Ponca City during American Legion baseball games and all that kind of stuff. So Kevin Godfrey,
a little chubbier then.
Yeah, I was a little chubby.
Back when you were a kid, Casey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I still probably need to lose about 86 pounds myself. I joke, but hey, I say that to say this has been a great experience for me, Kevin Godfrey, getting to catch back up with you. So any final thoughts here?
Not really. Go Pokes. Let's handle Utah this weekend and K-State next weekend. One game at a time, of course. And then we'll go from there and see what happens the rest of the season. But 2 big games coming up in 2 weekends, and we'll see what happens.
Oklahoma State fans, Kevin Godfrey.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Good to see everybody. Go Pokes.